his life with older people. When Bachar addressed that school group in his first week as an AFL player, he was 18 on paper, but more like 28 in spirit. That was why he exuded an easy authority. But probably the most remarkable aspect of the classroom encounter is that he's there at all. He'd have been forgiven at that age for being consumed with figuring out how to survive his first few training sessions, and yet he was making himself available for community work. But then, Bachar walked into an environment that made his whole career a form of community work. He must be the most hyped number 242 draft pick in AFL history. Even before his debut, his media file would comfortably have matched that of Bryce Gibbs or Tom Hawkins, the highest profile draftees of that year. There was no doubt Bachar could play. His press was more a function of social curiosity, as he was the first practicing Muslim selected to play at the highest level. There is an argument that the attention was overblown. At one level, that is unquestionable. But wasn't that true of almost every news story with a Muslim protagonist at the time? Bachar was drafted in 2006, little over a year after the London tube bombings, which introduced the notion of homegrown terrorism to the public imagination. 4 months later, the Operation Pendennis raids in Melbourne and Sydney franked that fear, part of the biggest counter-terrorism investigation in Australian history, which led eventually to 18 terrorism convictions. This was a time of heightened, frenzied public anxiety about multiculturalism, and especially about young Muslim men. Bachar had simply walked into that zeitgeist. In a troubled time, he was an ambassador by circumstance, irrespective of choice. He knew that before he was even drafted. I remember the Friday night in May 2007 when Bachar made his AFL debut against North Melbourne. I remember feeling as I walked into what was then called the Telstra Dome that something momentous was happening. I remember being nervous, like I had something major at stake. And I suppose, like so many Australian Muslims, I did. The AFL is a unique stage in Australian society. Muslims had been cast as villains on so many public stages for so long. This felt like a rare opportunity for one of us to be cast as a hero. I remember seeing Bachar line up next to Michael Ferrito, who seemed twice his size in every direction, and thinking, he just looked so out of place. But he wasn't, and that was the whole point. For the most part, Bachar entered the game with a sense of genuine goodwill surrounding him. The bomber shop at Windy Hill had sold out of Bachar Houli badges. So did the stand at the Telstra Dome on the night of the game. Even the Footy Show claimed to have adopted him the night before, as they announced Bachar's debut selection. It wasn't all smooth sailing, of course. The topic was out of Sam Newman's comfort zone, who looked up wide-eyed at the cheering studio audience and asked if they were Muslims, as if he were sniffing out a fifth column. Only Trevor Marmalade seemed at ease when he quipped that Essendon would win the toss and kick towards Mecca. But it was a start. Bachar marked in gold with the first kick of his career, and the crowd let out a prolonged roar. He was mobbed by teammates. The feeling among those near me suggested a rare brand of excitement. An errant hand pass in the last quarter did not draw anger, but sympathy. He followed up with a strong tackle and was applauded warmly. And me? I rode every moment of Bachar's game. I called for him to run into open space. I tensed as he held that mark. I pumped my fists as he kicked that goal. That was me out there. 13 years later, I'm speaking with Damien Hardwick, the man who has coached Bachar at Richmond to 2 premierships and All-Australian selection, and who personally selected Bachar to play under him for Victoria. Dustin Martin's won 2 Norm Smiths, Hardwick tells me. But ever since I've been at the footy club, Bachar Houli's been our best performed finals player, period. It's an arresting thing to hear when commentators are seriously debating whether Dusty is the best finals player ever, but Hardwick says it with total ease, fully aware of how counterintuitive it sounds, and fully confident in his declaration. He even has an explanation, rooted in the fact that Bachar's just so used to carrying the weight of expectation. I feel Bachar always plays with that, he says. I just always feel like he's playing for a greater purpose. Islam is central to that, both as a creed that shapes Bachar's values and behaviour, and as an identity marker that makes him a representative of so many. Football's an aspect of his life, but it's not the sum of it. Islam clearly sits above, providing purpose and perspective, and his story cannot be told without it. At every stage, through success and failure, injury and health,